Welcome to Catch and Go. In today's telecast, we're going to go into the title called Part 2, The Secrets. You need to listen very closely because it was April 15, 2024 at 2:27 p.m. This is Part 2 of the title called The Secrets. And I have said over and over that what you're going to see is the sequence of global events taking place and prophecy being fulfilled at such accelerating pace. Early into this telecast, that quick, the grace of God said to me the word rapidly. You need to understand that in part 1 of the sequence, we spoke to you and we told you about events that are about to happen. And you need to understand that there's going to be total war around the world. Not only total war, but a total collision. And the grace of God said to me a second thing. Are you ready? This one you need to simply circle and write. And I will explain in some other telecast why the Lord came out and the Lord said the word revolution. Just simply remember that I said to you that the Lord said in this part 2 of the title, the sequence, the grace of God said what? The Lord said the revolution. Now, on April 15, 2024 at 2:27 p.m., the grace of God shook me into this vision. And in this vision, the grace of God showed me a needle. A needle when you go get a shot. And you go to the doctor's office to get a shot. And then after that, the grace of God showed me Revelation 18, verse 23. And the grace of God began to speak to me concerning the merchants of the land. Now, I'm not going to get into talking about vaccines. I'm not going to tell you what you need to do or what you should do. But the bottom line is you need to be prepared for the global pandemic. And I have said it's a global pandemic that practically will wipe out 1/3 or 2/3 of mankind. Let me explain and let me take my time. What I'm basically saying to you is that 1/3 or that 2/3 of mankind, of civilization, because there's a war against humanity, will that 1/3 or 2/3 be wiped out pretty soon? Or will it be wiped out during the Great Tribulation? It's a good question that we should be asking ourselves. Because we know that when God releases his wrath, and I did part 1 of the title in his pavilion where he opened up the window and the grace of God showed me Revelation 15:1. And I said God's judgment, and not only God's judgment, but the bold judgment. I want you to understand that there must be a divine purpose why the glory of God takes me into this vision at 2:27 p.m. on April 15, 2024. And the grace of God shows me this needle, this injection. And I believe with all of my heart that the world is unprepared for this pandemic that's coming. And look, God has been sending warning. Not only warnings to civilization, to all of humanity, that we are living in dark moments. And the Lord said to me, dark age. And you need to remember that God has been sounding the alarm. And he has been saying that what you're going to see, it's a global collapse. You're going to see inflation continue to increase. You're going to see great suffering. You're going to see not only great persecution, you're going to see the scattering, but most of all, what you're going to see is that pale horse. Let me say that again. what you're going to see is that pale horse from Revelation chapter 6. And I have said over and over that I believe with all of my heart that God forces the Antichrist somewhere in the near future. But I said that I won't rule out if the Antichrist comes on the world stage in the year 2024. There's reasons why I said that. And there's reasons not only why I said that, because I believe with all of my heart that we are reaching a moment, and God basically almost spit it out of me. We're reaching a moment of an Esther moment. And the world is unprepared. The world is not only unprepared, but the world is about to experience a rude awakening, because I said the year 2024 changes the face of the earth forever. But in this title, a part 2 of the sequence, you're going to see major catastrophic event. You're going to see what the Lord just said to me. This one you need to circle. There's reasons why I tell you to circle this one. I'm going to say that again. There is reasons why I am telling you to circle what I'm going to tell you, what the Lord just said. The Lord said in lewd acts, meaning lewd acts, being committed at daylight. People committing sexual acts and sexual immorality and adultery at broad daylight. And that's a thing that God spoke. I believe it was the year 2020 or 2021 that God said that we're going to see things on earth. We're going to see things not only during the daytime, somewhere in the course of your afternoon, or somewhere in that day, we're going to see things that are mind-boggling. And I believe that the reason God, and this is something I want you to remember what I'm going to say. I believe that the reason the grace of God says lewdness acts being performed in the daylight, meaning that we're going to see more and more Sodom and Gomorrah. And then the grace of God moved my heart and my spirit, and the Lord spoke to my heart and my spirit, and he said, like the time of Lot. Why would God say like the time of Lot? Because sexual immorality, perversion, seduction, and I just saw the Lord show me the word seducing, and after he showed me the word seducing, I saw spirits looking at me. And what God is saying, the seducing spirit, a major escalation and a major increase when it comes to like the days of Sodom and Gomorrah. And I believe that when it reaches its peak, and not only when it reaches its peak, the Lord is going to do exactly what he did in the times of Lot. That the Lord practically took Lot by the hand. The angels of the Lord took Lot by the hand, and they brought him out of the city. And that's why in the title, in his pavilion, the grace of God spoke so profound from Psalms 31 verse 4 and 5. He spoke not only from Psalms 27 verse 5. He spoke from Revelation chapter 4. He spoke from Matthew 16 verse 27 and 28. God has been speaking, and not only speaking, but making it very clear that we're going to see sequence of events, global events that are about to happen on the earth. They're going to see it in the daylight. You're going to see it in the morning. You're going to see it in the afternoon. You're going to see it in the evening. You're going to see it at night. You're going to see it on your way to work. You're going to see it when you're taking your child to school. You're going to see it at broad daylight. In other words, God has sounded the alarm that perversion, the increase of lawlessness, seduction, deception, and corruption, it's going to go into a whole different level. It's going to increase quickly. Now, in this title, part 2 of the sequence, from Revelation 18, verse 23, the merchants of the Lamb, in the vision concerning the needle, I said that I was not going to touch or speak on the subject when it comes to a shot or a needle or an injection. What I want to say to you is that you need to prepare, because the grace of God is saying lights out. There is a pandemic in the making. And I know some call it this disease X or whatever. But God wants you to understand, whether it's disease X or whatever it is, the grace of God is saying that this will wipe out 1/3 or 2/3 of mankind. And I said to you that about a week and a half ago, in the middle of my message, the glory of God came out, and the Lord said what? The pale horse. You see, and God just said to me his judgment. Not only he said to me his judgment, he said his bowls, the bowls judgment, and God's wrath. Not only Revelation 15, you see that everything will go silence for 30 minutes there. And Revelation 8, you got blackouts in the making in the power grid. But in this part 2 of the sequence, I want you to understand that the suffering is going to increase. Persecution is going to increase. The scattering of the church, the scattering of believers, and God said to me, and the incarceration. I have said over and over that it is our responsibility to always, and should be, that despite of what we see going on in the world or in the nation, or despite of what your government is doing or saying, or whatever laws they put in place, as a child of God, our responsibility is always to respect world leaders. I'm going to leave it there. I don't want to continue to talk about respecting world leaders, because whether you agree or you disagree, it doesn't matter. Today, there's a lot of things that are being not only said on YouTube or Facebook. There are a lot of things that people are coming out and speaking out concerning certain things that world leaders are doing, and these not only world leaders but governments around the world, and things that leaders in the nations are doing. But actually, your focus should be on how you can make sure that you are locked and ready, and that your soul is prepared not only to go up in the air, in the rapture, and that you don't get caught off guard, and that you be left behind. If I was you, I would be focusing on making sure that my soul is not only locked and ready, but to prepare to go up in the rapture. And today, look, so many people are so glued to politics and to certain politicians. And God sits there, and God sits back and wonder, when will you wake up and realize that no matter what you say, no matter what we do, or how big of a fight we put up, it doesn't matter. They're going to do what they got planned to do, and they're going to succeed in their plans. And I have said, let's do a comparison, and let's compare some of the things that I want to compare with you right now. One thing, let's take the left, let's take civilization, the church, the believers, and humanity, period. Look, the left has highly succeeded. The globalists have highly succeeded. World leaders have highly succeeded. Let me say that again. The globalists, the left, and world leaders, with the World Economic Forum, with the Health Organization, with the UN, with those on the left, they have highly succeeded. But the church is still struggling to come out of its dryness. And instead of focusing on politics and politicians, why not be the shepherd and shepherd your people the way God asked you and called you to shepherd the saints and believers? You see, today the church is dry. Today the church is drifting further and further away from the truth. 1 Timothy chapter 4. That's why the Lord said at the beginning of this telecast that 1 Timothy 4 says that in the last day many will abandon their faith and be led by demon doctrine but seducing spirit. And God said at the beginning of this telecast that one of the things that we're going to see is that we're going to see more like Sodom and Gomorrah, but a moment of Lot. And when God says like a moment of Lot, God is basically saying that he's going to remove the saints and the church and the believers out of the earth. But wait a minute. The problem here is that we have today men and women that are practically over and over, the focuses of their message, or the emphasis of their message, is basically on what's going down in D.C. or what's going on in politics and what's going not only on in politics, but around the world. And God wants you to be watchful. God wants you to be sober-minded. God wants you to be vigilant. God wants you to pay attention to every little detail and every little thing that comes out on the news, whatever come out on the news or on YouTube and Facebook. God wants us to be watchful and to watch all the time. But he wants you to keep your focus on the kingdom. Not only keep your focus on the kingdom, but to begin to nurture and tender the sheep and the flocks, because the church is dry. And you got talking about 45 and 46 and 44 and 45 and 46. And God is saying, look, you need to focus on the sheep. And in this title, part 2 of the sequence, the glory of God is saying, you don't know what's coming. You don't realize what's going to happen so quickly. You don't even have a clue what's about to hit the world, what's about to hit the nations. And you sit there instead of preparing your soul, preparing the saints, preparing the believers, preparing your children. You're focused on 44, 45, you name it. You're focused on politicians and politics. You're focused on D.C. And God is saying, it's time to wake up. Because in this title, the sequence, part 2, there is going to come a life-changing moment any moment now. And I believe that that life-changing moment is April 15, 2024, the vision in which God took me into at 2:27 p.m. where the Lord took me into that vision, the vision of the needle, and then he showed me Revelation 18:23. And you are seeing something that the Lord just said to me. Are you ready? This one, God said to me. Are you ready? The grace of God said to me, stores are closing. Write this down. Stores are closing. Supermarkets are closing. He said to me, supermarkets and grocery stores are closing. Stores are closing. And the grace of God said to me, the rise of unemployment. And you're going to see the collapse any day now. In this title, part 2 of the sequence, what would you take out of this message? Based basically, what you take out of it is exactly what the Lord just said a second ago. God said a second ago, the Lord said what? Stores are closing. Supermarkets are closing. Grocery stores are closing. And then the rise of unemployment. People being laid off. People scrambling. And I need to tell you what the Lord said to me a couple of minutes ago. The Lord showed me a loaf of bread. And God was showing me that the price of that bread was about $4.05. I saw $4.05. And in many places throughout the U.S. and probably in other countries, today a loaf of bread is more than $4.05. Or could be slightly less. But why would God bring and show me a loaf of bread? Is because God is saying that the next time you go into the store to buy a loaf of bread, look, you know how much it's going to cost you? You know how much a gallon of milk is going to cost you? Do you know how much gas is going to cost you? Do you know how much it's going to cost you to put bread and food at the table? And God is saying, look, it's time to wake up. You say, well, what does part 2 of the sequence got to do with all of this? It's got one thing to do in mind, and that is Joel chapter 1 verse 15. Remember the food collapse. Remember last week God said this is not Y2K and the world is not ready. The world says that they're ready. People say and go around saying that they're ready. But actually, no one can fathom. No one will have a clue what's about to happen to civilization. Because I have said it's about the depopulation, and not only about the depopulation, but about wiping out 1/3 or 2/3 of civilization. And God, on April 15th, He shows me Revelation 18 verse 23. And we know what they're doing. They know that we know. But can we stop them from achieving their goals? Let me say this again. Can we do anything? Or can anyone stop them from doing what they're going to do and achieving a one world government system, a one world religion, a Sunday law, and you name it? No, because it's a biblical thing that is not only in the Bible, written in the Bible. It's not only there, but it's in different chapters of Daniel. Not only it's in Revelation, where John gets a revelation at Patmos. But you see, today we also have a struggle and we battle back and forth when it comes to homosexuality and the legalizing of homosexuality and all that. When Jesus told us that that will be fulfilled, that will come to pass one day. And so what I'm saying is this: instead of preparing your soul for eternity, instead of preparing yourself and your family for eternity and for the rapture, you're too busy wondering how can you stop the left? How can they pass this bill in Congress? How can they put new laws in your country? How can they put new laws in the nation? How can the UN say this and say that? How can the UN go against Israel? How can the US turn its back on Israel? Look, it's all in the Bible. So if it's in the Bible and it's written and declared in the Word of God, then who are you to put up a fight? Of course, we got to fight the good fight of faith. We got to speak up for our freedom and our freedom of speech and our freedom of expression. But even if you go down fighting, they will still succeed. You know why? Because all of this is in the Bible. It is written in the Word of God that these things will happen in the end time and in the final hours and in the end. It's all there. So if it's written there, it's been decreed not only in Jesus made several and many proclamations concerning the end. Not only he used the disciples and the apostle spoke concerning the end. The apostle Paul spoke concerning the rapture, and he goes on to warn us that right before he leaves, the apostle Paul said, right as soon as I depart, my departure, immediately after I depart and leave you, he said, savaging wolves will come on the earth. And that's what you got in 2024. And matter of fact, that's what you got in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. And people are putting up fights in vain. Not only are you fighting in vain, when God has biblically not only have that written in his word, that these are the events that are going to take place, but some say that God has reset the earth and it's a new era on the earth. Some come out and say that God said that there's a shift. Some go on to kind of say that that we're living in a moment of a great revival that's breaking out. And look, God gets concerned because in this sequence, in this part 2 of the sequence, the only thing that's going to happen is major catastrophic events. And you need to be prepped up. You need to be ready that for whatever comes your way, you be able to muster the blow. You be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with your loved ones and your family. You are able to stand firm unto the end, as Jesus went on to say, he who endures to the end shall be saved. You see, it's a war and it's a battle between the left and the right. It's been a war since 2020. It's not only been a war, it's been a war from the very beginning in the existing of the foundations of the heaven and earth. And there's a war in the heavens that's taking place literally right now as I speak. There's a war going on. In any minute now, you're going to see Luke 10:18. You're going to see Satan fall like lightning to the earth. And the bottom line is, God is talking about his wrath and his judgment. But a week ago, or a week and a half ago, the grace of God said that the saints, the believers, those that are standing in righteous, standing forever in the presence of God, we will see and we will witness God release his wrath on earth and on mankind. You see, in this part 2 of the sequence, you said, then what's the sequence all about? Why do you do a part 2? Since these things have been spoken long time ago and been spoken by great men of God, including you. What's the purpose of part 2 of the sequence? And part 2 of the sequence and the purpose to it and why I do this telecast is because God is concerned, and so am I. Because the church, the world, civilization is not prepared for what is about to come. I was watching a telecast the other day. A man did a video and he started talking concerning the banks. And I don't want to get too much into the banks in this telecast, but what I want to say to you is this. I have said over and over, will there be cash available? Will there be cash? And I'm going to give you my honest and sincere opinion or my decision from what God spoke to me. And I believe that at some point there will be no cash available. It's either going to be Silver or gold? Silver coins or gold coins? That's my answer to you, because that's what the Lord told me to begin to speak since 2008. I don't believe there's going to be any cash. Some say there's going to be cash. I don't believe it, according to what the Lord has spoken to me for the last 16 years. I believe that you'll wake up one morning, you'll go to the bank, and there's no cash in your bank account. I want to make that very clear. And look, nations are moving quickly to eliminate cash. But I don't want to talk about banks right now. I want to talk about this vision, in the vision of the needle. And it's just not this pandemic. It's several and numerous pandemics that are going to be released on the earth. And you're going to see that 1/3 and 2/3 of mankind being wiped out from the earth. I want to close right now in this telecast saying this to all of civilization and to the whole world. You need to prepare, because things are going to happen very, very fast, a whole lot quicker. And civilization and humanity is in the bubble, in every living soul that lives and breathes and walks on the earth is vulnerable to the attack of the enemy. And that's why God said that what you're going to see, it's lewd acts, people committing adultery, sexual immorality, perversion, in the daytime, in the afternoon, in the evening, at night, when you get ready to go to work, when you're getting inside your car, someone may be parked next to you, and when you look, people are doing something that is so gross to do in public. And God is saying that the earth will reach a point. The earth will reach the peak. And when it reaches that peak, the Lord is going to do exactly like he did in the time of Pharaoh when he crossed them over the Red Sea, in the times of Joshua when he crossed them over the Jordan, and also in the times of Noah, but also in the times of Lot. I believe we're going to see a greater level of a satanic invasion on the earth. We're going to see, and I say it once more again, we're going to see a greater level of a satanic invasion and perversion. And the grace of God said to me, and witches on the hunt. Look what the Lord said. I didn't say that. Look what the grace of God said. He said, and witches on the hunt, meaning they've been given an assignment by Lucifer, by Satan, to go and hunt down that individual or that leader, world leader, or that leader in the body of Christ, or that family, or that wife, or that husband, or they will begin also to hunt down and target your children. And remember, God has been saying it's time to homeschool our children. The grace of God wants you to understand that what he just said will happen. They may come and knock on your door. They may not only knock on your door, they may be the most friendly, soft-spoken man or woman that you have ever come across. And they're nothing but a Satanist, a witch, a warlock, a medium. And you, being a believer, cannot discern, because your bones are practically dry. God is sending a warning to all of civilization, but especially to the body of Christ. that you need to be extremely careful, because on April 15, 2024 at 2:27 p.m., the Lord takes me into a vision. He shows me the needle. He shows me then Revelation 18:23. I'm going to leave it right here. Part 2 of the title called The Sequence in which global events and the grace of God said to me, and the earth gets darker and darker by the moment. May the Lord so richly bless you. Remember to click like, share, subscribe, hit on the bell to receive our latest telecast. And remember, I catch you on my next telecast of Catch and Go. God bless.